Hello and welcome to this game review. So in this one we will talk about how to exploit an advantage in development, and the general answer is to play as actively as possible, and we must break through in the center. Later you won a piece, but you did not manage to win and even lost the game, and for that there is also a method, and for that we first need to calm down the opponent's counterplay, right? We have to stop all the opponent's ideas, because if you're a piece up, you will win if nothing happens, right? So you must make sure that nothing happens, and only then figure out how to use the extra piece. So e4, e5, and queen f6 already on move 2 is a horrible move by black, developing the queen on move 2, which will allow white to attack it later on and to help white with development. So bishop c4 is played, h6, knight c3, already hinting somewhere at knight d5. So c6 is played, so now black has moved 3 pawns and the queen, while white has developed 3 pieces, so it makes sense to start attacking the center, and d3 played very quickly is a very timid move. Sure, in the Italian we kind of play these moves automatically, but we must understand that when we're playing chess, we must make decisions. And here, if we're playing d3 so quickly, this is not a decision. Once we look at it, d4 is obviously the better move, because now we are actually attacking the center. And if black ever takes, can recapture, we can castle, play e5. The opponent's king is still in the center. We have ideas like knight f5, maybe bishop f4 to get to this square. And the black's lack of development will start to tell very, very soon. Otherwise, black has to play d6 to control the center, and now we have played d4 in one move, which is basically the point of the opening to get the 2 pawns in the center. This is everything we've been aiming for. So playing d3 did not really make sense, and this gives black some time to finish development. Bishop c5 castles, d6 and bishop e3. But now black is in time to finish development. Even here d4 should have been played. This time the point is that if this happens, we have the move e5, which is very powerful, trying to open up the center again because the opponent's king is in the center. If this happens, even knight e4 is possible, and white gains a very big initiative because of his very active pieces, and soon the e-file will be open. So instead bishop e3, bishop b6, d4, so now finally we play d4, a bit late but still good. Now bishop c7 and d5. So here white decides to change the structure, and this is a very committal decision. Up until here, white still hasn't stopped to think a single time, and this is kind of a bad sign. This means we're not using our time to its fullest potential. Here, of course, white has many moves. Probably the one that makes the most sense is to take here as soon as possible to open up the center. And for example, after bishop c5, black might have trouble castling, and this is maybe quite interesting. d5 is also possible, but now this means that we will be playing on the queen side. So okay, knight e7, queen d2, finishing development, knight e1, and this clears the way for the f-pawn, which is also an idea, especially since the opponent's queen is over here. It does make sense to play f4. Now black continues to waste time, and knight d3 is a very nice move. Now the rooks are connected, so now the position is just screaming for something to happen. When we play chess, the point of development is to get ready to do something. So once we have developed pieces, inevitably we must do something, and usually it is connected to pawn breaks. And here white has a couple of pawn breaks. One idea is to take here at some point to open the bishop and the d-file, but this is hardly useful. But the move f4 really comes to mind. And after f4, there's a very big threat of taking here, as black will not be able to recapture. So the queen will be hanging. So otherwise, what exactly is black supposed to do? If he goes to take to knight f4, the bishop is attacked, the rook is eyeing up the queen. There are ideas of knight e6, of bishop d4. Black is just completely lost, and all because white developed pieces and opened up the center. So instead b4, again not played after a long thing. It was quite a quick move. But b4, sure, it kind of makes sense to play on the queen side, but f4 was more to the point. a6, a4, again played quickly, f4 maybe. And one thing I would suggest generally in chess, before making any move at all, find yourself free candidate moves. Only once you look at your free candidate moves can you make a decision of what you think is the best move. Until then, you're only thinking on instincts, and the instincts are not the most reliable source of information. So okay, a4 and b5, but this doesn't really do too much. Black is not really concerned. Turns out after bishop a5, black gets to develop his bad bishop. This spin is quite annoying, so you can't really do much about it. Okay, instead, f4. Again, even with the black king castled, all the pieces are aimed at f4, the queen is misplaced, and this is very good for white. Okay, b5. Now the play shifts to the queen side. Some interesting maneuvers happen, and you put a knight on c4, which is very interesting strategically and probably a good idea. Bishop h5, knight c4, and b6. And after f3, f5, rook a6 is played. So now white plays on the queen side, and this is quite good positional chess. We're using this pawn to get the rook to a6. Also, there are numerous weaknesses. So now we have transitioned into some kind of King's Indian type of position, where white is successful on the queen side, while black will try to do something on the king side, though for now, nothing is threatened. Knight f6, rook a1, rook b8, and rook a7. So white has taken the a file, and he is invading. So rook fc8, and the white finds a way to break through to invade with the pieces with knight takes c5, which is a very nice idea. And after d6, we are getting the piece back. And after this piece exchange, we have gotten a lot of play in the center. But black is not without counterplay, and he finds the only idea that he has, which is to give up the knight on e7. Well, he doesn't really have a way to defend it anyway. After f takes e, black is trying to attack this king, while white is clearly winning the knight on e7, so he takes with the queen. Interestingly, here, after rook e8, the queen is kind of trapped, and it gets kind of perpetually attacked, which is a bit surprising. For example, after queen d6, black can play here, and white, if he takes here, after this, the queen and the rook, well, all rooks are a bit far away from the king, and turns out black is giving checkmate here. For example, g3, queen c2, there's no real way to defend from all of the threats. But this is a bit random and it's not very easy to see. This is why we should have probably taken with the rook. But okay, here black takes here, and clearly he's threatening checkmate, and we have a few ways to deal with this. And to find these ways, we must look for candidate moves. And it turns out that here, well, white has actually only two decent moves. So here, queen g2 is threatened. So when we have a threat to deal with, we either deal with the threat, or preferably we look for our own threats. And here white has his check with queen e6. And the point of this check is to maneuver the queen to h3. And the queen will be quite a good defender. And this attack for black will not really work out. At the end of this, black doesn't really have a serious way to continue his attack. For example, after queen c2, this is even checkmate, queen h6, queen g7. But we can also even ignore it and play something like knight d1 or other moves as well. So it's very important once you're up a lot of material to not allow counterplay, because we must understand that if nothing happens, we will win the game. After all, we are a piece up. In the end game, we will win. So all that has to happen is not allowing counterplay, and the queen would have been a good defender. After g3, it turns out black gets the initiative, knight g4, and here bishop f2 is played, which is a natural move, but it loses a piece, or at least a perpetual check is allowed. Instead, knight e5 makes sense to improve the knight, and the point is, after this, we can now recapture, and again we have more pieces in the defense. The rook can try to eliminate the pawn. The queen is tied to g7, so white is doing quite well. Instead, after bishop f2, black takes, and queen takes c2 happens, and here again white has a choice. He must move the king here, 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 or here. So if here, then this is checkmate. If here, then the knight hangs with check. If here, then the knight also ends with check, so we're left with king f1 and king f3. And white, after a little bit of thinking, decides on king f1. But we should have seen that this just loses on the spot after queen g2, the only kind of check. Apart from this, f2, and the black pawn is promoting. So this is all the calculation that was needed. Instead, of course, king takes f3 looks scary, because the king is running out in the open. But importantly, we are eliminating one of black's attackers, the pawn. Now, black is only attacking with the queen, and they can also join with the rook as well. And all of this looks very scary, but it seems white survives. For example, if here, we can go to g4, and black is actually kind of out of checks. He can give a check here, for example, after king h3, the checks are over, and instead, after rook f8, king g4, the checks are almost over as well. Black can give a check here, but after king h4, the queen cannot really give a check anymore. g5 is possible, but after king h5, again, black is going to run out of checks. For example, if here, then white is actually winning, as he is up a piece, and the checks are over. And after queen h3, the king has the only square g6, and after queen f5, the only check. This would be a perpetual. So this is kind of best play for both sides. And white could have just taken here by process of elimination, because after this, what happened in the game is not very difficult to see. And this is a check and this is a check. Next move is f1. Right. So with 3 minutes, we could have found this. So this is quite an unfortunate ending to the game. And as a general rule, when we're up material, our first priority must be to stop counterplay. Not to give checkmate ourselves or something, but to not allow the opponent to get some kind of counterplay. Once this happens, we will slowly consolidate, and we will enjoy our extra piece in the long run. But for that, we need to survive for the long run. So hopefully this was useful, and see you next time.